Hello everyone and welcome to another Stargate lore video. Today we're going to be talking about the Ancient Plague.
As I originally suspected, P4X639 was once a colony of the ancients. They thrived there for thousands of years until they were struck with some sort of unspecified cataclysm, perhaps a disease, but we'll never really know for sure.
History. We know the plague appeared millions of years ago and began wiping out the ancients. However, we never really learned where it came from as far as the show goes. The closest we got was a line said by Daniel about how similar the ancient plague was to the one created by the Ori when they invaded the Milky Way galaxy, theorizing that the Ori may have created the original virus. In the book Transitions, we do get an origin of the plague, to which we learned that it was created by the Ori. Kind of. It was actually made by an ancient Amara who made it at the direction of the Ori in an attempt to force the ancients to convert to Origin. Regardless of where the plague came from, it decimated the ancients. They even tried to build a time machine to go back in time and rewrite their history to prevent the plague. However, they never got it to work right as it only looped in hours as opposed to years, and eventually they just abandoned the project entirely. Another device built around this time was the Dakar superweapon, which was built by the ancients to reseed life in the galaxy after almost all life had been destroyed by the plague. Eventually, the remaining ancients either ascended or left Earth in Atlantis for the Pegasus galaxy. And we know of at least one ancient who was left on Earth at this time, Anaya, most likely because she had been infected. Also, look at that face this guy gives her. It's like he's saying, "Unclean filth." When the ancients eventually returned to the Milky Way after being driven out of Pegasus by the Wraith, they found humanity had entered the hunter-gatherer stage on Earth. Given the fact they didn't, die from the disease at this point, it can be assumed that at some point between them leaving and them coming back, the virus had run its course and had died out. I don't know if that's the right terminology for this. However, the ancients couldn't restart their civilization, so they either ascended or went down to live with the humans on Earth. And, how do I put this?
Their DNA is compatible with ours.
Meaning we can breed with them.
You got a one-track mind, Doc.
What? Listen, I'm talking about the survival of the human race, actually, not some get-together with the natives.
You also have no sense of humor.
Right.
The disease would spring up briefly again in 2002 when SG-1 and some scientists at an Antarctic base had found the ancient Anaya and brought her out of the ice, to which they were all infected with the disease. Anaya was able to heal almost everyone except for O'Neill before she died, and O'Neill later having to be healed by becoming a host for a Tok'ra, something he really didn't want to do. By the way, can we take a moment to acknowledge how kind of sad that is? The Ancients, one of the most powerful and advanced races in this universe, who presumably would have had access to unlimited technologies, tried to rewrite time itself to cure themselves of this disease, and had to build a device to reseed life in the galaxy because they just could not find a way to stop it. And these snake things can easily fix the problem.
And that's sad.
Okay, so kind of before we continue, I feel the need to say this. I am not a doctor. I am not a person in the medical field. I don't really know a lot of this terminology, to be honest. I'm giving it my all here. If you want a more in-depth explanation, maybe get Roanoke Gaming to talk about this, because I'm gonna give it my all here, people, but bear with me. Symptoms. So what are the symptoms for this virus? Well, it's similar to cerebrospinal meningitis, I have no idea if I said that correctly, and attacks the brain, causing weakness and high fever in the host. Eventually, this leads them to becoming disoriented and possibly collapse. The virus also affects the kidneys, causing them to shut down, and no known Earth drug or medication can cure the virus. and without a treatment, the host will eventually die. However, not every ancient was affecting the virus in the same way, as Anaya didn't seem to suffer from any of these symptoms. That was until she used her healing powers to heal almost everyone, which left her exhausted and her immune system exposed. This may actually indicate that a small number of the population was in some way immune, possibly due to being more along the path of ascension compared to others, with one of the benefits obviously being a healing factor of some kind. However, they could still pass the disease on to others. On that note, since humans were very close to the ancients genetically speaking, they could get the virus as well. However, given the fact that the Dakar superweapon was built specifically to reseed life in the galaxy, it's possible the virus targeted other races as well, such as the Ritu or the Sarakan. An interesting note is that when Anaya healed people at the Antarctic base, they never got reinfected, unlike with the Prior's Plague we saw later. This may imply that if you get this virus and survive, you are immune to it later on. Another thing of note is that there didn't seem to be any worry about humans becoming carriers for the virus later. Now, it is possible that just the way Anaya cured people completely flushed the virus from their system, so they didn't carry it anymore. However, I have no way to prove that, and it's possible just humans can't become carriers for this specific virus. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know exactly the scientific reasoning how or why, but that's just something of note. Treatment. So, as I said in the last section, Earth's medicines could not cure or treat this virus. So far, there have only been two things we've seen that can actually cure the virus. That being the powers held by a near-ascended being, and presumably other ascended beings, and the healing properties of a Goa'uld and a Tok'ra symbiote. Another possible cure is that of the Goa'uld healing device, as Vala used it to try and heal the people of Planet P8X-412 when they were hit with the Prior's Plague. Originally, the device could heal the Prior's Plague, but the Priors modified their virus so the device became less effective, and Vala had to re-heal those who she had already healed. Eventually it got to the point where the device could only relieve the pain caused by the virus and couldn't actually cure it. Assuming that the two viruses are related, it could be assumed that the healing device could heal the ancient virus. However, it should be said that in the episode Frozen, it was stated that at the stage O'Neill had reached, a healing device would not work on him. Fun facts. So as I stated earlier in this video, the kind of only real explanation we have on an origin for the virus is that it was created by the Ori. But
there is another.
And this comes from the MMORPG Stargate Worlds. Now, sadly, this video game was never made. However, it was going to be made and was going to be canon. So you can kind of take everything here with a grain of salt, although it probably isn't true anymore. Anyway, getting back on track, one of the storylines in the game was going to cover the Four Great Race Alliance. And one of the big things was going to be why it dissolved. And basically what happened was each race was going to pick a caretaker race. A race that was essentially going to take over for them when they were gone. I'll eventually come back to this idea in maybe a later video and cover what each race was going to do, but the Asgard created a technological solution called Solacryce, which I have no idea what that means or even how to pronounce it. However, it backfired spectacularly for them. Not only did it cripple their own race in some way, but it also created the ancient virus. Yeah, the Asgard were the ones who created the ancient virus.
Crap, indeed.
Accidentally, but it eventually killed all the ancients. Or at least those who didn't descend or flee to Pegasus. And that was the ancient plague, and it works. There's kind of a trope of things that can wipe out an advanced ancient civilization, and a plague is definitely on that list, and like I said, I think that fulfills its purpose. It's not so over the top, it feels like it's this massive problem that could bring civilization down at any minute. Although the virus is still clearly a threat, the one problem I have with it is that the one episode where it spread only one person died, and that was an ancient. And I'm not saying I want to see somebody die, but like, if this is a really deadly pathogen, then I think more than one person should die. I mean, the only people in that episode who have to stay alive is SG-1 and Dr. Fraser, and I think there were like 3 or 4 other people there, not counting Anaya. Again, it works as kind of a trope of a deadly pathogen that wipes out a civilization. I just feel like they could have made it more, I guess, big of a threat, you know? But what do you all think about the Ancient Plague? Do you think it's kind of what's like going on in the world right now? Or do you kind of agree with me it could have been maybe a bit bigger of a threat? Let me know in the comments, and please leave a like and subscribe. And remember,
The Tok'ra have offered you a deal. There's a symbiote that needs a host. They think it could cure you. Now it may be your only chance. It would only be temporary. It would come out of you as soon as they found another host.
Over my